This one. That's for the phone.
Okay.
But you have to speak in this.
I have to speak. I have to speak.
5 minutes. Can you hear us or no?
Yeah.
On Zoom, I mean.
Oh, it's-
Yes, because when I unmute this from here. Oh.
Mr. Jordan, it doesn't have to be. Link. Signal. So that means when did you live in Denmark? Okay. All right. Thanks very much. Yes, thank you. Did you say? No, I didn't. We just mentioned it. Backgrounds building.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the delay, but we're going to start now. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rahman. I'm the Business Development Manager here at Vertex 360, and I'm also your host. So on behalf of the team here, we'd like to thank everyone who's attended, especially, even those who are here and those who are here attended virtually as well. So thank you all for attending, and we really hope that from this conference, everyone takes home something of benefit. And is my mic's really cutting off? Does it sound good? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we hope that everyone takes home something of benefit. And yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about the agenda behind this conference, what we're going to talk about, what are the main points we want to convey. And so, yeah, basically, we can turn our attention to the NDIS So the NDIS, as we all know, is a very dynamic landscape. You know, in an industry where there's over 600,000 participants and growing, naturally there's going to be very stringent regulations and compliance, which we all need to adhere to in this industry, which means that these are problems which are facing us as providers, which they were never facing us before or as much. So that is the point of this conference, not just these problems, but actually how do we deal with these problems? How can we manage these stringent obligations and not just stay afloat, but how do we thrive? How do we grow as a business? So that's the main point of this conference. And for that, we have a lineup of excellent speakers who have a lot of industry experience. I'll start by introducing them. So first, we will have Faraz Rana. Faraz will be speaking about ensuring business continuity and how to safeguard your business amidst these changing industry regulations. So he is the chartered accountant and consultant of VCCG. Following Faraz, we will have Sean. Sean is the manager at VCCG, and he will be speaking about SIL. Following Sean, we will be having Hamad. So Hamad is a chartered accountant at TaxCube, and he will be speaking about NDIS manual payment reviews, recent changes to it, and strategies to ensure best practice. And then lastly, for our main speaker, we will have Asad Rana, and Asad is the principal lawyer at Amana Legal, and he will be speaking about the federal government's stance on payment delays, as well as NDIS recent recommendations, and lastly, the crackdown the government is having on non-compliant providers. So that is the essence of this conference today. It is all about how do we deal with this changing landscape, and that is the NDIS. And that's why after all of this, I myself am going to be delivering a demonstration on Vertex 360, which is a tool that can be used to stay compliant. So this tool is an NDIS management software, and its main purpose is to streamline your operations, whether that be rostering, whether that be support coordination, and all of these things in one platform. So this is a software which is also backed by experts. We have different people who are experts in their fields and have combined together to develop this software. So that is the point of Vertex 360. And hopefully, by the end of it, we'll have a Q&A where this will give you an opportunity to engage with the speakers, to ask them any questions that you may have, and hopefully that will further give you more clarity. So all in all, I hope all of you really enjoy this conference. I hope that you take away some very beneficial insights from this. And once again, thank you all for attending. So without further ado, I'll just pass it on to the first speaker, and that's Faraz.
Thank you, Rahman. I was hoping for a drum roll or something to introduce you, but it's very quiet here. Okay, so most of you know me here, I think so. If you don't know me, I've been in the disability services sector since 2013. When NDIS was very new, it was actually getting trialed in selected areas. And after working in the sector for about 3 to 4 years, we set up Vertex Consulting. And the purpose of Vertex Consulting was to bring in more providers in the market to enable the participants to have the choice. They have now with more than 12,000 providers today. My mentor actually sitting there, Dan, he helped me a lot with setting up of all the policies, procedures, and Vertex essentially. Since 2018, we've helped over more than 400 companies register with NDIS. And in 2022, we set up Vertex 360 as well as the software for NDIS providers specifically. So that's my introduction. So today's session, I will be focusing on the NDIS review. So 2023 was 10th year of NDIS, and the government decided to do a 10-year review of the program. And obviously, they saw some things were working great, but some things were not working so well. So they wanted to do an overhaul and see what's not working to try to fix it. So let's dig into it. Now, with the review of the NDIS, there was obviously a full year, 12 months of rounds of discussions, feedback from the community, from service providers, from participants, and very detailed sort of discussions. So we're not, and as a result, there was 26 recommendations, 139 actions, and 5 years of implementation of this plan. So we won't be going through every recommendation, but I've picked some important 5 or 6 recommendations which will be impacting the service providers and the participants the most. So the first one, which I think is the most important one, is the introduction of the navigators. So currently, as we know, there are local area coordinators in the market. There are support coordinators. There are NDIS planners, plan managers who are helping participants navigate the NDIS plans and help them to understand the budgets and how to use their plans, how to use the service providers, which service providers to use, and so on. Somehow, NDIS thinks that that model is not working fine, and we all know there are some issues with LSCs and with them having a lot of workload, etc. So the idea is that NDIS wants to bring in a new navigator model. So they will replace LSCs, support coordinators, and plan managers, and possibly also NDIS planners, and bring in a model of navigators. There will be 6 types of navigators. So there will be general navigators. So a general navigator is someone who is pretty much going to help anyone with a disability. It doesn't have to be an NDIS participant. It could be just a person with a disability who is not eligible for an NDIS plan. There will be specialist navigators. Specialist navigators will be people who are very trained and expert in supporting complex participants, pretty much similar to our level 3 support coordination currently. Then we have psychosocial recovery navigators. Obviously, by the name, it's clear they will be supporting participants with psychosocial disability. Housing and living navigators, these are navigators who help them participants with housing, shared support facilitators, and lead practitioners for the children. So you need to basically work out with the appointed navigators once this whole change is brought in. So currently, we don't know when the navigator model is coming in. So NDIS did say this whole change will take 5 years. They have made one big change recently, which is no unregistered providers can do SIL and support coordination. However, the other big changes are not yet known when they are coming. By talking with industry experts, people in the market, especially the health insurance companies, because they are the ones who want to become these navigators, essentially, I've come to know that this is something that will take at least 1 to 2 years, because if you think about it, replacing all the current LSCs, the amount of work required to find and recruit and train people, it will take a long time, and they don't want to make the same mistake they made with the LSC model and have untrained people. So it's something we think will take 2 to 3 years to come in the change. Now, one worrying thing with this navigator model is with the introduction of large private healthcare companies trying to enter the market through this model. And I've seen some of them have presented their reports online to NDIS as well. Some of them have started buying plan management and support coordination companies. One company, NRB, they've bought roughly 40,000 participants plan management businesses. So they obviously want to have a seat at the table when the time comes out for tendering for navigator services. The worrying thing is the business model they want to implement, and that is essentially they want to introduce a preferred provider model and have an out-of-pocket. If a participant does not want to use a preferred provider, they will have to pay, let's say, $4 or $5 per hour if they want to go out of their network and use a non-preferred provider. So something we need to keep an eye on how things are going, and especially small and medium businesses need to be especially keeping an eye on this because this will greatly impact the small and medium businesses. And this further, obviously, will put more pressure on you guys, on the small and medium businesses, to further control your cost, might end up reducing your investment in training, which will ultimately lower the quality of service provided to the participants. So something that we need to closely monitor. Okay. The second change is in access assessment and budgeting. So a couple of years ago, NDIS did actually try something similar, where they wanted to introduce a assessment team, which would be, I think at that time they were thinking of having allied health professionals who will be doing assessment. But that idea was scrapped because of all the reasons unearthed. I think there were some issues in tendering, etc. But what they want to do now is they want to essentially bring in needs assessors. So it's a good and a bad thing. So the positives in this change is that they've made it very clear that any reports required by NDIS participants during this assessment process will be paid for by the government. Right now, a lot of this cost is paid by the service providers who are trying to get participants a system in getting the services. So the government has said that these reports will be paid for by the government. However, there is a strong emphasis on needs of the participant, whereas before the emphasis was on the goals of the participant. So that's a big change that we need to look for. The other positive thing in this change is that these assessors will be meeting participants face to face. So before COVID, even LSCs used to meet participants face to face, but after COVID, it's been very minimal. Whereas with the needs assessors, the idea is that these guys will actually meet participants face to face. They will have their questionnaires, they will ask and understand the needs of the participants. And based on those needs, they will develop a plan for the participants. Again, like I said, the worrying thing is that focus is on the needs, not so much on the goals of the participant. Yeah, so who will be the needs assessors? There's not much information. I think there will be similar organizations as navigator organizations who will be contracted to do needs assessments. And in the example they've used in the case study, they've used social workers. So it is possible, like in aged care sector, there will be social workers in local hospitals or local areas who will work as needs assessors, who will go out, meet the participants and develop the plans. If you have any questions, we can also wait for the QA, or if you have a burning question, you can stop and ask as well. Okay, next big change is housing and housing and living supports, SDN itself. So the major change here is NDIS's view that the shared support should be 1 to 3 model. So they're very, they've said there are some exceptions. So challenging or complex participants may get 1-to-1 care, but they're very much fixated on a 1 to 3 ratio. They want to implement this ratio. This is why they have the shared facilitator role. So the shared accommodation shared supports facilitator. The role of this, the person will be to help SDA providers fill in spaces. So that's actually a positive thing, because right now a lot of providers have 1 participant or 2 participants with 1 to 3 ratio, and they can't find the third participants. Whereas with this role, shared support facilitators, they will be working with SDA providers to fill in these houses where there's 1 or 2 rooms empty. But again, like I said, 1 to 3 supports may sound very easy, but in operational terms, it can be very complex, especially when NDIS is also very much focusing on giving more choice to the participant, and they want to make sure that the SIL provider and the SDA provider are 2 different organizations. So if there are 3 participants in one house and they want to use multiple providers, they haven't got any formula how that will work. It just says that shared support facilitators will listen to everyone and guide the participant, which is not very easy sometimes. Okay. The next one is actually quite worrying, the remodeling of psychosocial disability. So in remodeling of psychosocial disability, what they want to do is, and I think they tried this before as well, participants with psychosocial disability were getting a 6-month interim plan a couple of years ago. And in those 6 months, they will be assessed and then they will get a permanent plan. So the model that NDIS wants to introduce now is to have a 3-year temporary NDIS plan for people with psychosocial disability. In those 3 years, they will be regularly monitored. Their progression and everything will be monitored, and then they will be assessed whether they are eligible for the permanent NDIS plan or not. So obviously, it's going to put a lot of pressure on service providers who are relying on psychosocial participants with psychosocial disability. And that will also mean that you will need to train up your staff a lot, because they also want to introduce a new NDIS practice standard specifically for psychosocial disability. So what that means is that anyone of you who are servicing participants with psychosocial disability, you will need to go through another round of audit where the standard that is particularly for psychosocial disability is assessed. You will require to have staff who are trained and skilled in psychosocial disability. And all in all, it will become a more challenging compliance environment for service providers. Okay. Yes, so as per section 24, they will assess. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, the thing that is worrying me is I think what they will do is once they introduce this change, the new standard comes in, they will convert all the participants with psychosocial disability currently on the system onto a temporary plan. So they will say, look, everyone is starting from scratch. You have a 3-year temporary plan. Now let's assess whether you continue to remain on this NDIS, or after 2 years or 2.5 years, you can exit the plan, which will mean people who have certainty right now will not have certainty anymore. The second, another important thing is these temporary plans will not be as detailed. So there'll be very much minimum support required to support the participant, and the navigators will be working with these participants who are on a temporary plan to link them up with mainstream services and foundational supports rather than relying purely on NDIS, which is the situation currently. Okay, so next change is obviously we all know that every provider will need to be registered with NDIS. So currently, as you all know, unregistered providers are operating in the market. They can deliver services to plan managed and self-managed participants who don't have BSPs, but that will change. Like I said, in September, they already changed SIL and support coordination to be registered providers only. Our estimate is that next year they will introduce high care participants to be delivered by only registered providers. And then following that, the following year, they will essentially give NDIS managed plans to most of the participants. And then in the following year, they will completely close down unregistered providers. This is a change that will take some time definitely to roll in, because a lot of providers, participants in the regional area especially, they are using independent support workers, unregistered providers. And secondly, a lot of basic services such as gardening, cleaning, they are delivered by unregistered NDIS providers too. So to enroll them and bring them into the system will require some time. But again, something that we need to be very careful of. This is actually an opportunity for us as registered providers. This is a good thing. This means that there's less chances of support workers taking away the clients, unregistered providers, poaching participants. So everyone will be required to comply with the NDIS standards. It's not like half the market is complying with the standards. They have really tough compliance, whereas the other half has no rules to follow. So this is actually a good change for us as registered providers. Yes, importantly, so as you know, as you must have seen in the media recently, there's a lot of news about fraud in NDIS. So one of the things NDIS wants to do is link every director's or shareholder's MyGov ID to their NDIS registration ID. So what that means is they want to have a more centralized, streamlined control in place. So the directors of the NDIS providers, their MyGov ID is linked to the registration. So if there is any non-compliance issue, it would affect not just your business, it may also have personal impact on the director. Okay, and yes, lastly, performance benchmarks. So this is similar to like Google rating. So what they want to do is have a streamlined digital system where all the providers will have benchmarks, and those benchmarks, like they will be rated against those benchmarks. And the ratings of every provider, registered provider, will be available online. So participants can see how does each provider rate against those benchmarks. Bit like the the school rating, same way they want to introduce this system of rating as well. Okay, lastly, digital and market innovation. So NDIS realizes the payment system they have is a bit broken. It's not connected. So a lot of like it doesn't talk with the commission. So NDIA agency and NDIS commission, they don't have a very connected system. So they want to invest more in technology, have a centralized system where the commission and the NDIA and the third-party organizations are talking with each other through that digital system. And through that digital system, they can monitor the industry in a more controlled manner. This last point on the digitalization is risk management. So NDIS wants service providers to have all the data electronically available, digitally available. So all your rosters, shift data, participants data, workers data will be required to be stored digitally very soon because it just helps them have a more robust compliance in the industry. Okay. So that was my first part of the session, which was on the NDS review. Any questions before we jump into the second part? No? Okay.
Just a comment.
Sorry?
Just a couple of comments.
Yes.
What you said so far is, it sounds like the needs assessments are just a rehash of the independent assessments that they tried to bring in a few years ago. And that's trying to bring control back to them as to what's determined the eligibility, what type of support.
Yep.
That's a bit dangerous. The 1-to-3 ratio for still an SDA sounds like they're moving people back into group homes and taking the flexibility out of that system. And the temporary psychosocial plans sounds like they're going to kick off people who mentally ill, people who are have a period of stability.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree with the last one because if you read the report in detail, they've made a few mentions that they believe a lot of participants who are, who don't need an NDIS are getting NDIS supports, and they're especially I think there was a comment around they're getting maids and butlers to cook for them and stuff like that. So they want to. This is why the needs assessor is coming in. So they're not going to worry about the goals of the participant. It's about what is the participant needs to survive.
Yeah, there's a cost blowout. So
yeah,
even me, I can understand why they want to cut back. But whereas a year or 2 years ago, if you could prove the need, this person needs 24-hour care, no matter what you say, give the reports, they have to give it. Whereas now we're seeing this year, they're allowing people to be in wheelchairs to be left alone home for periods of time.
Yeah,
getting worse.
Yes,
because in order for them to control the cost, and they don't care about the fallout.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but better get prepared for that.
Yeah. And when I go through the risk management, I've got some examples, real life examples. And yeah, you'll be amazed how NDS treats the service providers when the shit hits the fan and the cost there, the fund has blown out and the participant has no supports available. The whole blame goes on the service provider. So on the risk management, so why do we need risk management in our sector? Firstly, NDS Practice Standards 2.2 says risks to participant, workers, and the provider are identified and managed. So there's a good reason we have to comply with the standard. But also because we operate in the healthcare sector. So we are dealing with some very complex situations. So having a robust risk management system enables us to grow as our organizations or businesses. Risk management does not mean that we don't take the risk. It just means that we are aware of our risks and we manage them, we monitor them, and we are ready when the risk or incident happens, we are ready to deal with the situation. So risk management is a process of identifying, assessing, and monitoring the risk and with the risk that may affect your organization. Oops. Animation. Okay. So areas related to risk management. Firstly, leadership. So risk management starts from the leadership. The directors, the shareholders of the organization need to fully understand the value of risk management. It's very important. As owners and as directors and leaders of the organization, if you don't take leadership seriously, then your staff and team members will also not take it very seriously. Strategy and planning. So if you take the current situation, we have changes coming up in the next 5 years. So it's very important for us to start doing our risk management of how we are going to react to these changes coming in the next 5 years. Participants, obviously, we are dealing with participants every day. High care needs management, or staff and management, performance management, and strategic planning. These are all areas related to risk management. So why we need a risk management system? Firstly, it reduces the likelihood and consequences of a potential incident. So if something does go wrong, if we have a proper risk management system, we can control the damage that is in the organization. Secondly, it improves the maximizing or the favorable events. So if we do get a participant with complex needs and it has a decent size NDS plan, it can actually help you improve the effects of that on the organization. Whereas if you don't have a risk management system, that can actually have a negative impact. Providing decision makers and vital information to manage business operations. So again, like if you intake a complex or high care needs participant, it will help your intake staff to know whether you're ready to support this participant or not, if you have a risk management system in place. Enhance your overall value of the organization. If you have a really good, robust risk management system, your organization worth in the market will be quite strong. Whereas if you have, even if you have a lot of, like a huge revenue, a lot of risk, complex participants, and no risk management system in the place, the business can pretty much go down the next day if there's a serious incident. And implementing strategies efficiently to minimize expenses. Okay, so I've got 2 case studies I want to take you guys through, and this will actually explain to you how NDIS reacts when something does go wrong. So this is a real life example. A participant with complex behaviors and diabetes was being discharged from the hospital. The service providers went to meet the participant and tried to meet the participant, but they were not available. They went for smoke or something. The staff of the hospital wanted to rush and get the participant out, discharge the participant, because I think the hospital was trying to downsize their outpatient ward. So the service providers met with the hospital staff a few times, and the hospital staff never explained to them the behaviors of concern of that participant. They even had email correspondence with the hospital, and hospital never highlighted any behavior of concerns with the participants. So the participant moved into the cell house of the service provider, and they were funded for 4 to 6 hours every day. So they were sending a worker to their house 4 to 6 hours every day, pretty much. So a few weeks later, the participant decides to eat as many chocolates as possible to commit suicide. They were diabetic, so it can affect them very seriously. The worker went to the shift. The participant was not opening the door of the house, so they called the police for a welfare check. Police came in and they found the participant to be unconscious. Obviously, they called the ambulance. The ambulance came in, took the participant to the hospital. Now, the service provider did do their basic risk assessments. However, they didn't know the complexity of the participant. They were not aware of the behavior of concerns. The hospital staff had not advised service provider of suicidal behaviors of the participant, particularly, which is very serious. So obviously, when the participant went to the hospital, ended up in ICU actually, and the hospital reported the incident to the commission, that it was a neglect on the part of the service provider. So the commission called in the service provider. We went with our client, and the first thing NDIS investigator mentioned was that the service provider was fully responsible for this incident. Service provider obviously their concern was we're not looking after the participant 24 hours. We only have 4 to 6 hours of support. And this is an incident that happened outside of the support hours. But that was not the view that NDIS took. They also told the investigating officer that they had emails from the support coordinators, which was of another organization, and the hospitals, which did not mention anything about suicidal behavior of concerns. Okay, so the view that the NDIS Commission takes at that time is essentially that the participant is under your care, even though they're only getting 4 to 6 hours. The service provider should have done risk assessments specific to diabetes and behavior of concern. The staff trainings need to be done in diabetes. So luckily, they actually had a very qualified staff supporting the client. So they were trained in diabetes. The diabetes glucose logs need to be kept for 24 hours. So that was an interesting point. So the commission said, even though you're only supporting the participant for 4 hours of the day or 6 hours of the day, you need to make sure that the participant is checking the glucose 24 hours a day. And the worker, when the worker is going to the participant for those 4 to 6 hours, they can remind the participant, they can educate the participant, and they can follow up with the participant whether last night's glucose checks were done or not done. So the fact that they were only supporting the participant for 4 to 6 hours a day was not enough to say that we're not responsible for the other 16 hours of support of participant's life. So that was the commission's view. Obviously, we worked with the commission. We developed a more robust risk management system for the service provider, and we, in the end, took them out of the trouble. And obviously, they're operating with very much a robust risk management system. So this actually happened. I don't know if you guys remember. There's a participant in Adelaide called Anna Smith. She was in the news everywhere, and she had been left without support for a few weeks, actually. So right after that, the NDIS was very, very serious about participants living alone. And a few months later, they introduced a new standard around living alone participants. So all of that happened as a result of these instances.
For the previous study, what was the outcome?
So the outcome was we basically built a more robust risk management system for the organization, presented to the NDIS. They accepted the system as a continuous improvement they've made to the organization. So they were supporting about, I think, 60 to 70 of the participants, and NDIS could see that they've done a good job with those participants. But with that particular example, they didn't accept that it's the hospital's fault or it's coordinator's fault. They said it's basically your responsibility as a core provider. So you are responsible to for the safety of the participant. Sorry?
So we should work with someone who have less hours and needing more hours.
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, the NDIS, they understand that you were with the participant for 4 hours, but they tried to get you somewhere else. So they asked them, look, okay, do you have their diabetes log for 24 hours? So they didn't have it. So they were checking the diabetes on the shift while the worker went to work with the participant. But outside those hours, they were not maintaining a diabetes log for the participant. So if NDIS, they will find something, to hold you in your, hold you accountable. So it's always good to have a robust risk management system.
I just want to say that the NDIS, they're not going to have a leg to stand on. I'm not a lawyer, but this is going to be messy. Because before the hospital will discharge any participant, they need to do a robust handover. Now, when is this a new diagnosis? It's a long time, is there history? Who did they actually hand over this, give this summary to? And even the treating doctor before the acute hospital admission. So if they want to go through this case, it's going to be interesting because everybody is going to be in a mess. So they can't say it's the provider or the hospital. Everybody is going to have a piece of the cake.
Yeah. So look, when we actually made that point to them that it's hospital's responsibility, and straight away India said, look, hospitals' compliance is not my problem. They said EPRA or other government departments are there to monitor the compliance of the hospitals. The commission said we are here to monitor the service providers, and we're only going to talk about your compliance, not the hospital's compliance. That's the view they take. Yes.
The logs are maintained during the shifts. You have maintained after as well.
Yeah. So for diabetic participants, you should have the glucose logs, not just for the shift, but outside the shift as well, like 24 hours. So
Do like interact with them outside the shift.
look, the participant can check themselves, or if they are living with the family can check the glucose. As a core provider, we just need to make sure that they are checking their glucose. And if we see there's a pattern that they're always high, the glucose is always high after hours or in the evening or night, then as a duty of care, we should take some steps to try to resolve the issue. So this is the second case study. This is where an adult participant with complex behaviors booked a 2 weeks respite with a service provider via a support coordinator. And service provider had no prior history of this participant, so they were not supporting them before that. It was just a 2 weeks booking in their respite house. So after the 2 weeks finished, the participant refused to leave the home since he had nowhere else to go. The SP engaged with the family and support coordinator of the participant. However, the participant did not wish to move back, stating that there were complaints of, he complained that the family was neglecting him and abusing him, so he didn't want to go back to the family home. The participant's family actually reported this incident to the commission, stating that the provider was neglecting the participant as they're trying to push them out of the respite home. So, communication with the commission, this time we didn't have a meeting, it was over emails. The service provider reached out to the commission to find out that it was the responsibility of the service provider to undertake a homelessness risk assessment prior to intaking that participant. So they were a bit taken back that we're trying to seek help from NDIS Commission, but the commission is saying this is actually your mistake. You should have done a homelessness risk assessment if a participant is coming to your respite. And service provider jointly with the support coordinator had a duty of care to ensure safe transition to another accommodation. So as a result, they had to find another accommodation for the participant, which took a couple of weeks. And until then, they had to let the participant stay in their respite home. And since the participant had behaviors, they had to also support them all out of their own, at their own cost, because there was no money left for the participant as well. Yeah, unfortunately. So we actually, in that example, we actually told the commission that we will implement Vertex 360 as our risk management system. And then they let us off the hook, and the service provider then implemented the Vertex 360 system in their organization. So Vertex 360 has a vast and growing library of risk assessments. So we've got currently about 50 risk assessments in there, and we are planning to add another 200 to 300 risk assessments into the software. And as we grow and as our clients face new risk assessments, we are constantly updating our library of the risk assessments. Okay, so interested in a comprehensive review of your risk management system, you can contact us on this email and my number. And that's all for me. Thank you.
No, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm interested in the last case scenario. So you need to do initial risk assessment before you onboard this. So while you're waiting for the commission to respond to approve the or whatever, what do you do then?
So in this case, the family of the participant actually complained to the commission that the
participant didn't want to go home.
They didn't want to go home, yes. So the commission essentially said, look, the fact that they don't want to go home, the family is abusing, that's not under NDIS's jurisdiction. If the family is abusing, NDIS commission has nothing to do with it. And the participant is an adult, he was not a child, so child protection doesn't get involved. So it was pretty much up to working out with the family if they can improve their behavior, or finding an independent accommodation for the participant. So the support coordinator job was to find a better accommodation for them, but until they find the accommodation, they couldn't push them out of their respite house. They had to give them a safe place to live. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you, Sean. Next.
So thank you for us. Next will be Sean.
Well, good evening, everyone. So my name is Sean. I am also from VCCG. I hope you're enjoying your evening so far and that you've gotten something out of Faraz's presentation so far. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about home and living today and talk to you about a workshop that we've created that could be helpful for some of you. So I just wanted to start by telling you a little bit about myself. So I've been working in the disability sector for about 10 years. I started in education as a teacher working with teenagers with disabilities. I then later on worked with a speech pathologist, implementing intervention programs and literacy programs for kids with disabilities. I got involved with the NDIS since 2018, providing allied health educational services, core services, support coordination later on. And more recently, I've now working with different organizations and helping them to improve their systems and enhance their knowledge of the industry. So I wanted to talk to you about this workshop that we've implemented about home and living. So it was evident to me and some of my colleagues that with a lot of the NDIS providers that we've been working with, they wanted to learn a lot more about the home and living supports, especially since the introduction of PACE in October 2023. There have been a lot of changes with SIL, SDA, and the new home and living category. So we had this idea to develop a workshop, quite an extensive one that goes for 3 to 4 hours, that covers the 3 areas that you can see on the screen here. Primarily individualized living options, supported independent living, and specialist disability accommodation. But more extensively, these are the different areas that we cover in the training. So additionally to SIL, SDA, and ILO, we also go through PACE changes, evidence requirements, how NDI decisions around home and living are made, medium-term accommodation, funding flexibility for home and living relevant legislations, different disability housing options, how to invoice for different home and living services, and the future NDIS changes and how they can impact home and living. I'll briefly talk to you about SIL as well today. So as I'm sure most of you are aware, SIL is essentially what we call 24-hour care. You know, we often hear that language a lot in the industry. That's essentially what SIL is. But often a big misconception that goes around in the industry is the fact that people think that 24-hour care is always one-to-one. Actually, as a matter of fact, SIL is often at a shared ratio. It is very, very rarely given as a one-to-one. And it's typically given in a shared accommodation setting. Participants and providers are often unaware of this requirement when requesting SIL. Now, SIL can be given in both an SDA and a non-SDA setting. Typically, in an SDA setting, you would have an SDA provider that partners up with a SIL provider, and they would have an agreement between them. Typically, in a non-SDA SIL, the SIL provider will also be the same person who provides both the accommodation on a private arrangement and the support, which is the SIL support. In those particular arrangements, there would be an NDIS service agreement for the SIL supports and a separate service agreement for the tenancy. And often the participants will contribute out of pocket towards the board through their disability pension and rental assistance. For SIL, participants need to be over the age of 18, and they need to require at least 8 hours of active support and the rest of the time partial support, making up a total period of 24-hour care. Some interesting stats for you. As of the last financial year, it is estimated that 6% of participants have SIL in their plan, but that results in more than $1.5 billion of funding annually, which makes up a significant portion of the NDIA budget every year. I wanted to also quickly speak to you about ILO, which are what I consider the most obscure part of home and living, and that's because a lot of people don't know about it. So ILO is much more flexible and can be adapted to specific situations and contexts when compared to SIL and SDA. Typically, it's not suitable for participants who require shared supports, although it can be provided in those types of settings as well. It is deemed by the NDA to be more person-centered than the other options, as the package and arrangements can be custom-made. The ILO arrangement takes into account the community supports, the informal supports, and the paid supports together and creates one big package for the participant. So only about 0.2% of participants have ILO in their plans, which is approximately 1,300 participants in the entire country. So not a lot, which is why we don't hear a lot about it as well. And this is not because participants are not eligible for ILO, but it is more because providers are not aware of it and the process is quite complex. So therefore, participants don't want to go through it and providers don't want to go through it as well. The ILO packages that are given are usually quite set. There are 3 different packages. They start at $105,000 a year to $150,000 a year to the bigger package at $230,000 a year. To give you some ideas of how those arrangements work, you can see on the screen here. And this is where I think ILO really differentiates itself from the other home and living supports that we have. So a participant can leave alone and receive formal support with the help of some community support and some informal support. They can live with a host, which is either they move into the home of a provider or a support worker, or the support worker can move in with them, yes, as essentially a housemate arrangement. And as we mentioned earlier, it can also be in a shared living space as well with other friends or even other participants as well, but slightly different to the SIL arrangement. I wanted to briefly touch on core funding evidence and why it is important for everyone to be aware of what is required when requesting for more core funding. If you are a support coordinator or an allied health provider, it is evident that this knowledge is important to you. If you're a support coordinator, you have the responsibility to navigate and facilitate the entire process. Allied health providers, especially occupational therapists, are responsible to provide the medical evidence necessary. Core providers have less responsibility in the process, but are impacted the most, aside from the participants, of course, if a non-desirable outcome takes place. And that's because by far, the core funding is much more extensive than these other supports. So if you have a participant that has SIL, for instance, or ILO, and suddenly the funding has reduced or disappears, then it is your organization and your staff that are impacted severely. So as a result, I think that it is important for you as core providers to understand the required evidence as well. It is evident to me that there are many core providers that are helping participants that do not have support coordination in their plan and are helping them with the support coordination and helping them make applications, make plan reassessments. So understanding those evidences that are required when navigating home and living is actually quite helpful for core providers as well. Before I finish off, I'll just give you some more information about home and living. Home and living supports have the most significant funding from a business perspective. More funding, however, also means more responsibility. So providers need to be better equipped with the right knowledge and information. If you're supporting the participant to apply for home and living support, having the right information will ensure applications are made properly. Applications will take longer if you're applying for home and living supports because it goes to the home and living team of the NDIA. So we've seen time ranges go even over 6 months to get a response. So you want to make sure you get it right as quickly as possible. I saw a study that said that 70% of participants want control over their living arrangement. Being able to meet that requirement will give you competitive advantage. Compliance is now even more important. As we know, we heard earlier about the future of SIL and the requirement of registration. So understanding the compliance requirements around SIL and SDA is now even more crucial than ever to prevent significant consequences from the NDIA. I will leave you with some stats. So it is estimated that there are currently 660,000 participants in the market and about 240,000 providers. So that's about 2.74 participants per provider. So we're playing with quite a competitive market. It is estimated that there are 38,000 participants with SIL or SDA in their plan, but about 40,000 providers. So that's about 0.95 participants per provider. So there are less participants with SIL or SDA in their plan than there are providers offering those services. So really competitive. And I'm not stating that fact to discourage you from providing those services, but to understand that it is important that you have the right knowledge and the right equipment to differ yourself from the competition. Thank you very much for your time. And if you're interested in our workshops, please be in touch with any of us here today. If you're also interested in any other workshops and want to learn any more about the NDIS and how to navigate this process, please be in touch with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we'll have Mark.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you guys still want to be as NDIS providers after all this, but look, it is a big industry, like it is a $30 billion industry, and it always needed that governance structure, which it never had. So everything is going in the right direction. It is going in the positive direction, and like it's something that you can't avoid going forward, probably because of the size of the industry. All right, so we're going to talk about the manual payments and some of the other things that are happening, which are mainly due to SHADS award that came up. So the SHADS award had a major revamp about 2 years ago. And after that, slowly, a lot of restrictions have started coming in. We've started to see a lot of other agencies start getting more active, such as your state revenue offices. And so they started doing a lot of data collection, data matching with them and trying to figure out. So anyways, we'll go in details. So we'll start with the manual payments. So do you guys know what manual payments are?
Yes.
Yes, good. So basically, generally you do manual payments when you've exhausted the plan for the participants. Okay. And there could be different situations that lead to that manual payment, which could be increased servicing needs, unforeseen expenses, and inefficient management of plan. Again, this is one of the things, is something that needs to be managed very well as soon as you know that you're going to be over-exhausting the budget. So you need to start doing the necessary communication to the plan managers or the support coordinators or the NDIS as well to say that, look, you got a participant that is scheduled to have only 5 hours, but we're having to give them 10 hours. So the more communication you start before you actually go into the manual payments, the better it is going to be for you. Because what's going to happen is when you put it in a manual payment plan or claim, you're going to have to submit all the documentation. So when you stay within the plan, generally you just submit your invoice, so you go and make your claim on the product, and you just have to input an invoice number. You don't have to put case notes, you don't have to put evidences and all that. But when you do a manual claim, you have to put all this information with your claim. One of the trick or tip is that don't try to make let's say you haven't paid for a month, rather than making a whole month's claim, try to do your claim, which is less than 7 grand. Do it in small chunks, rather than just doing one big chunk, doing small chunks. We tend to see from based on our experience, the smaller payments generally do not get that much questioned and they get passed on easily. And then you can just keep breaking that amount and keep doing those claims. You just have to remember there's a high chances of manual payments being rejected. And in that scenario, NDIS will not accept that you've already paid your workers, you've already done this, you've already done that. They will just say, well, you shouldn't have provided the service when the budget was not there, hence it's going to be your loss. Okay, and this is where the importance of the efficient plan management comes in. And this is going to be, I guess, the more we get into this industry, the more the rules come in, this is going to become more and more important. So I think gone are the days when people used to get a plan and then they would just say, oh, because of incident, because this issue, we had to blow the plan in 3 months or 6 months, and then get an interim plan while they're getting the new plan. So I think Farah, you're telling now there's no interim plans? No. Yeah, so now you know if you've over-serviced someone and that expectation is there from that participant that you're going to continue the service, because you don't do the service, they're either going to go somewhere else or they're going to pressure you to provide the service, then you're going to be out of pocket by providing the service. And again, this is where you need to have good justification of why you're providing that extra service. And getting approval from the NDIS and sport coordinator is your best bet in making sure that you will get paid from there. Okay, going forward, the other thing that we're hearing is that the NDIS funding is going to be starting to be getting divided to flexible and fixed funding. So which is, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of aged care, but generally in aged care, that's how it works. You get money and it gets divided over 12 months, and generally you can only use that money in that 12-month budget. You can save up and then, don't use it for 1 month and use in the next one. So we believe that's how they're going to be starting to do the fixed funding. So which is they're going to say, well, let's say your core will be divided into, say, 60 or 70% as flexible. So you can use wherever you want to, but then there'll be a portion which will be fixed. Hence, you will only be able to budget as that. The other thing that we've seen recently is if you're making your claims and this is as per the client's budget, generally the payments will get approved and you won't have any issues. But where they see a trend of you overclaiming, generally they will stop the payment. And that's, I guess, the challenging part is they will not just stop the payment for that participant, they will stop payments for all your participants. And it has made some of my clients go into massive cash flow issues, which we try to work out and, we're trying to now. And then when they ask for evidence, is, pay slips, is case notes, is all this stuff, which will probably take you or 2 weeks to get that information together. So really got to make sure now that you have good evidence as you're going. All right, so that's just about manual payments. How to process them or anything, you guys obviously can get in touch with us and we can let you know. But generally, if it's plan managed, you just put the evidence and then you give it to the plan manager and the plan manager will do it on your behalf. And otherwise, if it's Prora, then I guess one of the guys in consulting can teach you how they can do it in Prora as well. Okay, the next topic. This is the interesting one. And this is where we now see the State Revenue Office across Australia have started to become pretty active in this area. The reason for that is NDIS being a new industry, a lot of providers started to, grow beyond that they wanted to. We have quite a few clients who have gone to 2 million plus. And one thing that they were not doing was they were not registering yourself for payroll taxes. And this is something that we've been pushing. And because the state revenue is more active now, so from a accounting perspective, we're going to start to push it even more. Okay. What is a payroll tax? So payroll tax is basically, it's actually somebody actually called it's the most stupidest tax. Because why? Because you're actually getting taxed to give somebody a job, right? That's why you're getting taxed, because you're giving somebody a job. But anyways, that's the government and you have to do it. So it's a tax levied on wages paid by an employer to employees when total wages exceed a specified threshold. It is self-assessed. So you do assess it every 3 months or every month, depending on the size of your company. And then after that 7th day of the month, you have to report to the state revenue office and pay that tax. Do you need to register? So we'll just look at the next slide. All right. So one good thing is from July 25, they have realized that the wages have gone up. And so the threshold is gone now to $1 million. So that means if you're paying $1 million to your employees, then you have to register for payroll tax. The very important thing here, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have any employees. I only got 2 employees. Yeah, but you're paying 1.2 million. Who is that? Oh, the subcontractors. Unfortunately, the subcontractors are part of the payroll tax calculation. Okay, so even if you're paying subcontractors, like your support workers, and you pay them on ABN, you gotta combine it together and then pay tax on that. And actually, even worse is, even if you're taking as a director fee, that's also included in that calculation. That's also part of the threshold. So essentially, to make it simple, if from a company, you're spending $1 million on your employees, your directors, and yourself, essentially you need to register for yourself for your payroll tax. And the rate is 4.85%. Now, if you start to do it on a monthly basis, it doesn't hurt as much. But if you ignore it and then you're gonna pay all of a sudden for 1 year, you can imagine 4.85 of $1 million is almost 50 grand that you have to pay. And then you gotta pay penalties on it and as well. And it's one of those taxes where there's no deductions. For example, income tax, you can sort of say, I've got this expense and that expense and reduce your tax. But payroll tax is very simple. You paid $1 million, 4.85% of that, you just gotta pay that to the state revenue office. One good feel-good factor is, which you feel good when you're paying the tax, is that it pays for your teachers and your hospitals. So it's not too bad. It's not too bad. So if your kids have got a good teacher, you can take yourself.
Think of charity, right?
Think of charity, because the payroll taxes are they're all paid for your police, nurses, doctors, schools. So it's all paid for good stuff. So you gotta feel good about that.
So this is on a gross. You're saying on a gross.
Yeah, that's right. It's on a gross, and you can't have any deductions. You can't say, "Oh, this, that, then nothing." It's just gross.
Wow.
Yes. So a lot of our clients have not been very happy with us, but it's not something that it's the government that's dictating it. So was it? Is it better now? All right, sorry about that. Okay, so just have a look at this example. So essentially what happens is if your payroll, including your subcontractors, is 900 grand, then good thing is you don't need to pay any payroll tax. But even if it goes up by 920 grand, then you're gonna pay the tax on the entire amount. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is something, if you pay on monthly basis, it doesn't hurt as much. But if you try to do it on a yearly basis, it's gonna hurt. All right. Any question about payroll tax? No?
What if you start paying monthly and at the end of the year realize that it's actually under 900?
Oh no, yeah, so what happens is you actually look at your monthly threshold as well. So if I can try to go back, so your monthly threshold is 83 grand. So if you're paying less than 83 grand, then you don't need to pay anything. And it's one of those things as well. You'll know, for example, if you started paying 85, 86 grand a month, then you'll know, okay, it's time to register for. Because you might have, especially this industry, you might have a couple of months where you're going up, but then you go down as well. So you can do, and that's why it is self-assessed. Okay, so you can do a 3 monthly, 6 monthly review. And once you register, then you basically have to report each month. And the other good thing is, even if you registered, but if you paid less than 83 grand, then you don't have to pay tax. Okay, so then 0. So it's not that if you're registered, you just have to pay the tax. All right. Now the last one. So this is, I guess the most hate from our clients. This is something that we have a lot of debates and a lot of things and everything like that. And it's a massive thing, right? Do you guys know much about superannuation? Yeah. Do you guys favor it? You don't favor it? So look, superannuation are the people that is basically giving the money to government. Okay, so they are your biggest investors who buy the bonds from the government. So what's happened is that, especially with the gig economy coming in as well, superannuation companies have gone to the government and say, hey, we're not getting as much money as we should because we're seeing all these people getting paid, but no one's paying super. And if they're not paying a super, we can't give you money. Again, feel-good factor. Obviously, they pay the money to the government builds more roads, more infrastructure, that kind of stuff. So they made it mandatory then that even for the gig workers and everything, now you have to pay superannuation. Up until last year, a lot of times what it was that as long as the ABN contractor is not making 80% from you, you don't have to pay the super. So a lot of the clients, they just gone and got the letter from their contractors to say, I'm not making 80% from you. I've got other jobs as well. So that was kind of, you can say, like a Band-Aid. And we didn't have to worry about that. From this year onwards, from 1st of July, they've changed that now. So what they're saying is, so technically there was already the definition already there, but now they put the definition within NDIS shads as well, which is they saying if you paying 50% of somebody's invoice as labor, then you have to pay super, okay, on that person. So and now obviously most of our subcontractors are support workers, right? So therefore 50% of the invoice is more than the labor. They're not providing any equipment to you, anything like that. So they are this. One important thing to note here is that your cleaners, your gardeners, although you're subcontractors, but you don't have to pay superannuation for them. Okay, and I'll tell you why.
We have?
No, you don't have to. No. Now, don't just get your support worker to give you invoice for cleaning and say, yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You both pay 11% as superannuation, as saving money for you after 64 years old.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, but for the contractors,
yeah,
11%, it's not saving money for the worker. Same?
It's the same. So the money goes into the superannuation. So you actually do not pay, and also actually that's a very important thing. So the superannuation, you do not pay to the worker. You have to send it to their fund. No matter the worker say, no, give me my super and I'll pay. Because what's going to happen is, even 1 year, 2 years, 3 years down the track, if you get audited, you're going to have to prove that you send the money to their fund and not to them. Because how are you going to guarantee they're going to put the money into their fund? And you can guarantee they're not going to put it into the fund.
11%.
11.5%. No, to their fund. So they will have a fund, like superannuation fund, whether it's SMSF or normal fund. So you will basically every 3 months transfer money into their fund. That, for example, you pay somebody 12 grand, then you'll pay about $1,200 or 12, whatever the workouts it is. You transfer that to their fund every 3 months. Okay, and there's a lot of things happening in this one, because from 2026 they're going to introduce pay their super. Now, which is going to be very painful for a lot of businesses, because now what happens is, yes, you have to pay super, but you keep that money for yourself for about 3 months, and you can generally use that for your working capital. You pay your expenses, and then the money comes in. But pay the super, when it comes in, essentially the same that you pay your employees, the same that you got to pay the super. So that means that money is no longer with you, and it's gone straight to the super fund. Okay, so but that's going to happen in 2026. Okay.
To the super and they send you the proof.
Look, if they send you the proof, then you can keep the proof, because ultimately you have to show the proof that it's been paid. Okay, and And then the question will be, if they're going to pay and put it through, well, why don't you just pay? Because legally, it is your responsibility. And that's why we put it there. As an employer, it is your responsibility to ensure that you're making the correct SA contribution for your employees. And superannuation is one of the worst things. Why? Because if you pay it late, you have to pay superannuation guarantee charge, which is a penalty for you to pay the super late. And then the worst part is you can't even claim that as a tax deduction. It's just a penalty that you have to pay.
It's like 22%.
Yeah, it's a lot. Plus, there's penalties for that as well. So I just tell all my clients, super is one thing you don't want to play with. You know, it's something. It's the backbone of the government. This is the government's, you can say, bread and butter. Because you can imagine a small provider has got a super bill of, let's say, $1,000 a quarter. But imagine the number of employers there are. So just imagine the number of money the superannuations are getting each month. Like we're talking billions of dollars, right? That they are playing with. So they're not going to let you play with that. That's their money. So don't play with the government on that.
You can play with this.
Sorry?
You can play with this.
Definitely you can play with your own super. And that's obviously, you can invest everything. You can decide where it's invested and everything.
It's not really wasting money. You can invest, you can buy property in your super.
100%. And that's actually a really, you pointed a very good, I worked with a lot of people, senior care, and, when I asked them, and they're struggling with the expenses and everything. I said, well, why are you struggling? What did you do when you were younger? I was a brickie, I was this, I was that. I go, okay, so raise your super. Or I didn't have any super, I worked in cash, or I didn't know about superannuation. So now you're 65 years older, and you don't have a superannuation fund, you're relying on government's pension, which I think is about $800 or $900 a fortnight. And if you don't have a house paid off, then by the time you pay your rent and bills, you got nothing. So we know a lot of older people that are just struggling, And look, at the end, they're all going to retire at one day. Okay, we're all going to get old. So yeah, it's superannuation. We've been avoiding it for, I think, the last 2 or 3 years, but it's one of the factors we just not avoid it anymore. Obviously, you guys know about the single touch payroll. I'm assuming, yeah. So single touch payroll is data basically essentially is legal now. As soon as you pay the employee, within 21 days, you have to report to the ATO. That's why a lot of your employees will, even when they go to MyGov, they can see how much they've been paid to date. So what happens is now for the government, it's very easy to data match. Okay, this employer paid this much money to employees. Where's my super? Right? So it's a very easy catch. Unfortunately, can't get away with that anymore.
Just a quick question. You said super for contractors. Does it mean for us as directors as well?
No, not. Oh, but sorry. If you take a director fee, you have to pay super on that. Okay. And then essentially the same thing. If you're taking, even as a subcontractor, you're saying I'm doing some supervision or operations management, because 50% of the payment is for your labor, not for your materials, you have to pay super on that. Where you don't have to pay super is, for example, when you use a gardener, cleaner, or even an accountant, right? So you just ask them to do something for you, whether it is prepare a tax return, clean the house or something. It doesn't really matter if they go and do the job or they send one of the employees. Okay, this is where the biggest factor is, because when you do a support working, if you ask a support worker to come and work for you, you don't expect him sending somebody else. If he sends somebody else, you're going to say, well, hold on, why did you send somebody else? Because you're registered with us to provide the support. That somebody else is not. So they have to come through. So hence you have to pay super for them. Okay. But gardeners, I think the biggest confusion in here is the gardeners and cleaners. So gardeners, cleaners, people that generally achieve a specific job for you, you don't have to pay super on them.
So
Okay.
it's applicable even in 2023, 24?
It's been applicable since 2022. Okay. But it's one of those things, whenever the government brings in some new legislation, new laws, they don't enforce it like straight away, because they know it needs time for people to learn, adapt. Naturally, as a business owner, now you have to pay an extra 10% from your pocket. It's not a very good feeling either way. So it takes time. Hence they go. I guess they go a bit easy in the first 2 years, but after that they go hard.
Last year, if we've had contractors where we've paid 80%.
Yeah. So we should pay super for them.
We have to.
Yeah, we have to, yeah. Because it's one of those things, even if they fine after 5 years, they're gonna go back 5 years, and then you're gonna have to pay interest for 5 years, and then you have to pay penalties for 5 years. So you're much better off coming up clean, making a payment plan, pay it, and then it's not your headache anymore.
If you agree with them that you're gonna give them the money with the super back then, I think you can chase them up to pay them now.
Yeah, or like I said, some clients were getting those letters from the support worker. We were saying that I don't make 80% money from you, but it becomes hard if somebody's working 30 hours or 40 hours from you. And you're like, okay, if you're working 40 hours here, what else are you doing, man? Like, there's only a certain number of hours in a day that you can work on. So that, I guess, Band-Aid doesn't work for everybody. If somebody's just doing 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week, yeah, that's okay.
It seems to be like an indirect employee, sort of.
Yeah.
But an indirect employee.
Indirect employee, and look, and this is a way, so what ATU actually calls it, ATU actually calls it sham contracting. Because they say they're not really your contractors, right? You're not really subcontracting them, they're really just your employees because they can't say no to a shift. They work on a schedule. You give them jobs and responsibility to do. And so all of this goes towards you having them as an employee. But I do understand that the industry that we work in, a lot of the people, even if you tell them to work as an employee, they will not want to work because then the tax issues and everything like that. All right. So at this one, as I mentioned before, so essentially if you contract a contractor to achieve a specific result, then you don't need to pay superannuation for that. And this is the examples are your gardeners, your cleaners, your accountants, your external agencies. You don't pay super for them. Okay. And also anyone under 18, you don't pay super for them as long as they're not working 30 hours. So if they're working 30 hours, so that's another change. Before under 18, there was no super. But now they said if you're under 18 and you're doing 30 hours plus, then you have to pay superannuation for that. Okay. The last thing is, which is not here, and there's another thing that we're going to start chasing our clients, is the portable leave. So you guys heard of the portable leave? No. All right. So what portable leave was, essentially, SHAD's recognizing that you have people that go into different companies. You know, for example, they might be working as a support worker for 10 years, but they are not eligible for portable leave or not eligible for long service leave because they've changed companies. And it could be different reasons. The way this industry is, you can always be changing. You know, you have participant today, you might not have a participant next week. Okay. So what they said is they picked up 3 industries: cleaning, security, and disability and age care. And they said, as long as you remain within this industry, so now you will have long service leave. So what happens is the employers have to calculate their leave. It's about 1.3%. And then you pay that to your state government. So in Queensland, it's called Q leave. Here it's called portable leave. And you give the money to the state government. And when that employee has worked 7, 8, 9 years in the industry, he can go to the Victorian government, or she can go to the Victorian government and say, I'm going on a 1-year leave. I've got my long service leave there. And hence the Victorian government will pay them. Okay. So that's another thing. I think and also the thing is with that, there's no threshold. So even if you have 1 employee in SHADS, support worker, you're going to have to start doing your portable leave as well. And we believe the data matching is happening, that the focus now is on payroll tax. Next focus, we believe, is going to be portable leave. That's something that they're going to start chasing. And they will make you pay for the last 2 years since that change happened. Okay. So
for them to rob us, because if an employee's with you for a full 10 years,
yes,
then you're accruing their long service leave, so you're building it into your accounts, your finances, and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
If employees go with you for 2 years.
Yes.
3 years, you have to pay the government, say government a bit of money. Then they move to another employer, they have to pay the money.
Yeah.
And say after 60 years, which is very common for our industry, people leave the industry.
Yes.
Who has their money?
Absolutely. Look, that is definitely a question. There's no answer at this stage, and this is something, and even the government doesn't have the answer. That how is that going to work? And maybe this is where I guess we're going to have some, like legal understanding. And this is something Even myself, I need to research more. But we definitely did raise that question that, okay, we'll pay this. But what if this 5 years later, the guy goes overseas for good? So then Victorian Gomez has got that money. What are you going to do with the money? That's technically our money. You should be giving that money back to us. There's no promise of giving money back. So I guess that's something that, it will develop as we go. All right. Thank you so much. I think I've taken quite a bit of time and there is nothing else. Thank you for listening and thank you for coming on a Thursday. And if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Break. So 15 minutes.
Is it?
After we come back. Excuse me, guys. After we come back, we'll hear from Asad, the legal landscape changing in NDIS. Thank you.
We didn't know. I think so. Some of this will actually yes. That's what Joanne is going to do. No, it's a 15-minute.
Second one, I've done it.
I'll just step into I had I was very old.
You should continue.
Thanks, Rob.
I want to know this just as well. Anyone? I Yeah, it's all secure. A little bit, it is. It is. It's just like the way he's going, but he's gonna try. It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's just like that. That's what I said to you. This is something, also thing. And something that big. Exactly right.
Tiago, muito order não.
Make sure they have some. Look at the man living. He's not good at the man. Like Harry. Just. He was also a spy.
Yeah, everywhere.
He's the cleanest trend.
Onto your dogs. Oh,
I'm very excited. I was gonna take off to wine room. I was like, I don't know. Be gross out of that. What happens there? Shame. Maybe I should have just done it. Sure. No, I did it. Too much just for you. It's a little bit more. Different instrument. We change some things. But like it's just a lot of random tappers. Is that gonna make you want to wine though? Probably. Yeah. But it's okay. Fox tongue. Oh. With sauerkraut. Oh. That's what I mean. Some was like cucumbers with like anchovies. Oh yeah. I was burying that way with spinach. No, let's go to the normal place. That's what I mean. Like, you would probably appreciate something cool. Yeah. Thanks. Isn't there Wi-Fi? Oh my god, I still don't think it is. Until my school used to have like let me log into all of these. Your school? Yeah, like at high school. It used to automatically sign me in, yeah, well, I reckon our uni. I'm gonna have to do this whole sign, or not the whole sign. I got none of it done yesterday. They send it apart like such a link. To give every like this.
but it's cute. It's like, he has like a little Asian boy. And then her dad's this big tatted guy, and yeah, her brother's one too.
Oh. As if you have reception.
It's barely, it's pretty bad. So sick of Kate and her throwbacks.
Oh. Right.
So like,
There's something going on with her. She's like never at work. Oh, that Kate. Oh yeah, I know.
oh, you're talking about your Kate.
My Kate. She's something weird about her.
Since she's coming down.
Apparently her mum's sick though, but then I don't know, I don't know.
Got a lottery ticket for tonight. And I was so depressed at CCU. I bought tickets. Do you remember I was sitting in the office and we were really silent? And then I looked up here, I just put it on. Oh, yeah, actually. It was a really big one, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't know.
Those big ones. I never buy lottery tickets. I never think to buy them. My budget's too limited.
Oh, mine is too, but I just like to push boundaries.
You have a safety net though. If
Yeah,
you need it.
not really.
No, you do.
Oh, it's a damn leaf. So what you see? Like it. It's like always look better.
Yeah, I wonder if I feel like it would
Pants.
suit me.
And
Oh, they're
pants.
pants.
These aren't, but I have.
Pants are
So, you got it. I like it.
they should go to
You know, she.
see Francis too.
Oh.
Major.
She's from.
No.
I was up to.
Do you have 3 minutes? I'm sure you'll be fine.
Charging. Mine is charging. Yeah.
No, we need to go back. Like 10 minutes, let's go.
Yeah.
We could have days going to be.
It's not good for me. Thank you.
Yeah, we just want to. Oh, yeah. Hello. Okay, guys. Next up is Ahmed. Just hold it and. I just hold it. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Asad Rana. I'm from Amana Liga. I'm a principal lawyer there. And I don't know why my friends have been standing and giving presentation. I'm going to take a liberty and sit down if that's okay. Yeah, we have a chair here. Look, in terms of the conceptually speaking, there have been few discussions about compliance. There's been discussions about taxation, payroll, a number of topics which are often dry as well, but they have been presented in a fantastic way, colorful way. So now I'll take you to something that's really dry. Law. Now, in terms of my introduction, if I can tell you, I have been in the industry for quite some time. I feel like I was born a lawyer, but I was there when there was problem with RTO industry. And some of you might be there that time when there were a lot of frauds and scams going on. Department of Education and Training was looking after that. I was there when there was problem with the family daycare industry. And there was a huge problem there, in terms of billions of dollars fraud. And now I'm here with the time of NDIS industry. Again, there have been obviously a number of concerns that Bill Shorten, the Minister Bill Shorten had. Ironically, Bill Shorten is the person who proposed NDIS, and then he became the Minister of NDIS, so he actually got to control. The word is that he was not really happy about how things have been going, and therefore, back in 2022, there was a task force set up, and one thing leading to the other. In 2023, there was actually a name given to it called Fusion. And then since that time, they have been looking at the fraud in the NDIS industry. Now, the good thing for you, I do criminal law, I do civil law, I do public law. So one-stop shop. I hope none of you get to go to that stage where you are or anyone else is charged criminally. But these are serious matters. An essential difference between how you do business in an outside world, for example, you're selling stock at the shop to consumers, versus where you're dealing with public departments, is that with public departments, you have public purse, and that is taken quite seriously. Any fraudulent activity on a public purse, you would see that a lot of time, for example, ATO, Services Australia, NDIS itself, or NDIA in this case, they are all funded by public money. And there is a special focus on ensuring that there are no losses under the guise of fraud. So there would be criminal charges, for instance. A very common one that is most of the time applied is obtaining financial advantage by deception, Commonwealth charge, quite a serious charge. Now, I will just talk about, and I don't want to go too much into the criminal side. I'm going to talk about what has been happening in the industry from the point of view of compliance. So as I think you can all see the screen. So basically, this is just, as I said, Fusion Task Force was set up, started operating, started working. They looked at a number of transactions. What is Fusion Task Force is an integrated sort of a work arrangement where NDIA works in collaboration with Services Australia, with ATO and this and that, other public departments. And now they've got a system where they can see what is happening, as Fraz has pointed out earlier. They are also looking at linking government IDs or Gov IDs. Is it director IDs or the government IDs? MyGov IDs. So basically that covers everyone, pretty much what you're doing. Normally people would think, well, it's government, so they know everything, but there are privacy regulations, laws, what you can and can't do in terms of government departments talking to each other. So they have streamlined that process. And as part of recommendations that we'll look in a second, these things have been further strengthened. Now, I think it doesn't need to be told that the business approach with NDIS, it needs to have a certain level of due diligence in it. And I'll explain to you why, because there is public money involved. And these due diligence, sometimes it is negligence. It could be that you haven't looked into something. and you've charged overlapping shifts, for example, for a participant. It's a mistake. It's a simple error. It could be that you have given some invoices to the plan manager, and the plan manager has made some mistake. A number of other things can happen. For instance, it could be that you have provided shifts when shifts could not be provided. For instance, you have overclaimed certain funding or certain invoices where the funding was not available. Something that I think our accountant basically touched base with you on manual payments. The concept of manual payments, again, is something that has been scrutinized. There's a number of other things that NDIA is also looking at. When this task force was set up, interestingly, mostly I think that the problem that, because I'm sitting in the industry, I can tell you the problem is that they have recruited obviously ex-police officers who know about criminal law, but they're not as aware about the NDA. They're not as aware as they should be about NDS. They're going through the training process. The people who are training the police, these ex-police officers, if you like, or investigators, whatever you want to call them, the people who are training them, they know NDS law, but they don't know that much about criminal law, right? But that is because these are teething problems. Whenever you set up something new, you'll have those teething problems. So NDIA itself, the Fusion Task Force, is maturing as the time goes. Now, we'll just go over the key aspects of the regulatory crackdown, just keeping that in mind, that this is a developing area. There have been banning orders issues and this and that, and we'll just go and discuss that briefly. So you have the tightened auditing and compliance checks, right? Everyone knows that. A number of you might have experience, or someone who has experienced manual payments, that you've been requested to put in manual payments. Why? Because your payments are being reviewed, you're not getting paid, they're looking into it, they ask you for documents, provide us timesheets, pay slips, the premises where the care occurred, and a number of other documents like even contact details of the support worker and whatnot. So they want these documents to see and to ascertain that the care was actually provided, and it's not a care in absentia. Also, sometimes, like I said to you, there's overlapping care. Sometimes it is you who has provided care to a participant, and then there's another service provider who has also claimed care for that same participants, which you can refer to as overlapping care. That can even happen with you. You might have double dipped, like I said, by accident, by negligence, or in some cases, intentionally. So they will look into it, and then they wouldn't just stop that participant. They will basically stop all your payments until they do a formal review and make sure that all the invoices that you are generating are bona fide. So in terms of the delayed payment, I will just go briefly into that because I think it's important. There was a case of Northern Disability. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of that, a federal court case that was recently decided. Luckily for us, His Honor Justice Horan was actually someone who had done extensive administration law. So he was part of the Australian Government Solicitor's Office. He also worked in Commonwealth Attorney General Office. And then obviously he became a Justice of Federal Court, I think about a year ago. The case went to him. So he knew what are the intricacies, if you like, of payment systems. The application was made by Northern Disability, who was waiting for a payment of around $500,000, and that was not being paid to them. Now, under the Administrative Decision Judicial Review Act, which is for short ADJRA, under that act, there is a provision that if a public department does not make a decision within a reasonable time, then you can approach a court and force the secretary or the chief executive in this case to make a decision. Now, that doesn't mean the decision is going to be that it should be paid, but a decision needs to be made whether they're going to honor the payment or they're going to decline the payment. So in the case of Northern Disability, it had been about 28 days for one payment batch, and they're normally referred to as RTP, I think a lot of you know. And then there were about 3 payment batches. But the court took the position that on the website, you are advertising that it will take you around 3 days. The NDIA will take about 3 days to make the payment. And that's how it used to happen. So the court had to determine what is reasonable time. And they said, well, if your advertising is 3 days for normal payments or auto payments, if you like, then you cannot take 28 days. That is unreasonable. So it was found by the court that the time taken by the chief executive of NDIA was unreasonable. Therefore, a decision wouldn't require to be made. So that is under Section 7.1 of the ADJR Act. And the interesting bit about that is that the court order, or His Honor Justice Horan ordered that an affidavit be provided by the chief executive explaining why it's taken such a long time, what is the due diligence that they're doing, and what is the outcome of it. Now, keeping in mind that, as I said to you before, it does not mean the payment will be made. What it means is a decision will need to be made. Section 45, as you're aware, I think most of you will be aware, Section 45 is the relevant clause which determines the payments, which basically says that NDIA needs to make a payment to you. Now, if NDIA needs to make a payment and you want to internally review it, you cannot do that. So if the NDIA says, no, I'm going to decline your payments, under normal circumstances, for example, in family daycare law, in RTO laws, and all this sort of thing, and even in NDIS Act, there are a number of decisions that can be reviewed internally. For example, change of circumstances, right? And you just put in a change of circumstances for someone, you say, no, I need to increase the care hours, and you have been declined, you can seek an internal review of the decision under Section 100. But with Section 45, which is payments, there is no internal review. So what are the options left for you? Is 1, to go to a tribunal, or 2, to go to a federal court. So in this case, this is the context of how the application was made. So there was a win for service providers in many ways, because at least the NDA was in effect forced by the court to make a decision within a reasonable time. Now, how NDIA approached it, obviously they have their own teams of lawyers and they work around the system. And what they do was, okay, well, we will make those decisions in 10 days. If we are not sure, and I don't even think, and that's my view, my personal opinion, that I don't think they have got the competence to even look into it, simply because there are a lot of people who are being trained new. This is something they have said, by the way, in this court case, where they said, well, the reason for delay was we are training a lot of new people. But obviously the Honorable Court refused to accept that as a reason. There's plenty of case law which says that that cannot be a reason for delaying payments. So in effect, what happened was that NDA now had to develop a way where people don't keep on going to the courts, because every time you go to the court, there's a cost for NDIA when they lose. As a matter of fact, anyone who loses, there's a cost for them. But in this case, because NDIA lost the case, there was obviously cost implications. So what they do is what they started doing from experience is that they will make a small portion of payment, and then they would ask you for further documents. So you will have an extended time then to provide more documents. Now, if they refuse the payment because you haven't provided all the documents, and that's where record keeping comes very, very important. But if they refuse that, then you really have not much of an option, really, because the decision can't be internally reviewed. The only way you can get some relief is by making an application to federal court, which is not cheap, at all, or under some circumstances, possibly going to the tribunal. Now, the good thing about going to tribunal is that you can get something called Section 42D remittal. What it means is that while the tribunal case is going on, you can access participant funding from the future year, until obviously the decision is made. Why? Because the care needs to be provided, and they're assuming that the funding for the current year is finished. However, I don't know if any of you know the difference between the tribunal and court, but essentially tribunal is something that can only do what is written in black and white in law, in NDIS Act in this case, NDIS rules. So it will need to be there. It can't go outside of that. But a federal court has got something called an inherent jurisdiction. What it means is that federal court can make decision based on thousands of years of, actually probably around 1,200, not 1,000, not that long, but about 1,200 years old case law, which is called precedent. They can even decide what's fair and what's not, but a tribunal cannot. A tribunal must do whatever the law says. So that was a case which is sort of, if you like, has become the primary case in this matter. And as I explained to you, the only way to make sure that you don't fall into this trap is to invest in compliance. I mean, I simply don't understand, because most of you are either small business, medium business, starting a business. Whenever you do any business, you would want to look at the long-term aspects of the business rather than just making some money off a participant. And this is unfortunately the approach at the moment. You've got a participant who's got $1 million running, well, I'm just going to go for it. No, that's not the right approach. You just take it slowly. You make sure that you follow the procedures. You have the compliance in place. You think about running your business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, leaving your business for your next generations. That is how you should approach this. It is not something, look, there was a rainfall about 4 years ago. I don't know how many of you registered about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. But at that time, it was like a rain, right? A lot of participants everywhere. All you had to do was register a company, make money, make money. This is not the approach. Especially if you're registering today, you probably will have a difficult time anyway, because there's a lot more competition now, a lot more compliance now. NDIA itself has learned a lot. So these are the things that you must keep into account. And like I said to you, there are criminal implications, not just that you'll be banned or your registration will be revoked. So basically, look, in terms of your implementation, there's a lot in the slides, but the gist of it is that you should have a good compliance system, a record-keeping system. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have this system, Vertex 360 has organized it, and I've got a role to play in working out the legal side of things, where I've advised them on a number of things. And if you look at Vertex 360, for example, in terms of your payment sort of thing, in terms of your shift work, you've got geographical location tagging. So your worker has got an app. It will tag the place where the worker went and provided the care. There is an electronic footprint of that. No one can say that didn't happen, that care didn't occur. Now, why wouldn't you want to have that approach towards your business? I don't understand. Because then, look, if NDIA comes, Fusion Task Force comes and says, or NDIS Commission comes and say, hey, have you provided that shift? Well, this is the evidence. It's irrefutable. No one can pull you aside for that. But yes, it will mean that you will have to sort of do the work in a proper way, in terms that your workers will need to be properly screened. Your workers will need to perform the shift that they're supposed to perform. And if you work that out and have a long-term approach to business, The software is going to help you a lot. There's a lot of other features, this software. I'm sure there's going to be a demo after that. And you will see there's a lot of other features. This Vertex 360 is basically focused on the compliance point of view, from the compliance point of view. So there are a number of features that you can utilize. But more importantly, it protects you. We as lawyers, we use systems ourselves. For example, I use Smokeball, I use Leap, a number of other software when we do trust accounting. Why? Because we don't want the headache. I just want to focus on my business, right? I don't want to be worried about, okay, well, the auditor is going to come and is going to see, oh, how come you had this much money not paid at the right time? Now it's more than 14 days and all that sort of thing, because my software does all that for me, right? So use modern technology, and that can save you one day from possibly a big problem down the track. In terms of I'll just go over it was a very interesting case that happened just recently. So we had how the industry is operating. There's an Iraqi family. I think there was about 6 people in their family. 4 of them had intellectual disability. And they were just coming from Iraq to Australia. Even before they came here, there was a provider here who registered them, right? And they're not even in Australia yet. As soon as they came off the plane, the provider comes, welcomes them, and then starts providing care. Down the track, there's a little bit of dispute. And because the family wants to go to Sydney because they know someone there and this and that, well, the provider is not happy because they're going to lose these people. So what do? They go and make up false police claims, police complaints, one sibling against the other, even of sexual nature, appropriation of funds or monies that are their planned nominees for the two siblings who didn't have any disability. They were the planned nominees for them. So they just made these allegations against the planned nominees, and they made their life hell. They just came here from a refugee camp, and this provider got intervention orders. You know, they made false representation to police that they are NDIS, and interestingly enough, police didn't even know the difference between NDIS providers and NDIS itself. So we had to explain to the police, and we did quite a bit of work. There were about 7 different, it was 7 or 4? 6. There were 6 intervention orders, criminal charges pending, this and that, you know, guardianship orders, going to the Office of Public Advocate, getting them involved. It was a lot of work. But in the end, what happened was that we finally got the family together, because what they did was they took 2 of the siblings in one place, and then they had another arrangement with another provider who took the other 2. So they were just basically treating them like, you know, a source of some sort of a treasure that they found, and dividing them between themselves. So ultimately, we had to go to court, we had to go to police, NDIS Commission, OPA, to the VCAT for the guardianship orders. After doing all that, it took us about a year, right? We finally got the family together, right? Then, and they used to, every time they used to come to the office, they would cry. I mean, is human value really that low? Is money really that important that people are going to do that? And because of people like that, this crackdown was obviously eventuated. There was a real need for this crackdown. It's just one example that I gave you. You know that, you know, there's about $2 billion now, up to $2 billion now already, where people have been given money for drugs, for international travel. I had a client who took a participant just recently, about 3-4 weeks ago, just took his participant to Japan. And luckily for them, they hadn't paid from the plan of the participant at that time. But they took participant away. Can you take someone for international travel? No, you can't, right? But they did. And they spent a lot of money, apparently $17,000 per person. There were 3 people, so it was not just that person. So the mother went there, the brother went there, and the participant who had serious intellectual disability. They took them to Japan. But what happened? On the way going to Japan, federal police had a discussion with them. When they came back, federal police had a different discussion with them. And they came to me and they were cross about it. And they said, well, what was the need to have all these guns and everything else in our faces as soon as we landed in Australia? They took us to the interview room and this and that. And I was just looking at their faces. They have the guns. This is what police does, right? But have you not reflected on what you have done? And that is the important bit, right? I mean, raids on the houses is not pleasant. You know, who would want federal police to just wake someone up at 5 o'clock in the morning? I don't know. I don't want it, right? Back in the days when family daycare, well, I was privy to a number of my clients were in that boat. As you know, I'm a defense lawyer, so obviously my clients are the ones who are alleged to have done something wrong. So without going into too much detail, it is not a pleasant experience. But why put yourself in a situation like that? I mean, it's not a long-term strategy. This money is not going to last. This money that you've got, you probably end up paying lawyers at the end of the day, people like me, right? Well, I think it gets a bit tense, so I'll tell you a joke. Who can tell me what's common between a lawyer and a leech? You know what a leech is? I think everyone knows what a leech is, yeah? All right. Ah, look at that. Come on. Okay, what's the difference between them? Huh?
When we come off one word, I guess.
Well, the leech lets you go once you die. No, the answer is once you're deceased, the leech will let you go. But the lawyers, they do deceased estate and everything else, so they just keep there. I mean, but look, in actual fact, you don't really need to put yourself in a situation. That's my message. Because ultimately, when it comes to compliance, you will have a lot more to pay. I mean, we do a lot of submissions. It's a funny story. A guy came to me and said, look, I've done already my submission. Can you just review it? And I said, okay. And he had actually applied for it. He had some suitability matters. You know, when you make an application, at the moment, there's a long waiting time, already been 2 years. And then he got this letter, intention to refuse registration. So they said, well, we're not going to give you registration. Why? Because you haven't got enough experience. That's Section 10 suitability matters. And the guy comes to me and says, look, can you just review this for me and just put it through? And I said, okay. Well, I said, normally I don't do that. I want to have a proper time to look at it. I looked at the notice and then I saw his submission. You know what his submission was? Section 10, copy and pasted. Yeah, it was 2 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs and about 14 points in there. And that was his submission. Are you going to get somewhere with that? No. And then when it comes to me, okay, how much is going to charge? Well, I'll charge you about $7,000. It's quite a bit of work. But if you had done these things in the first place, you wouldn't be paying this $7,000, right? I've got criminal law. I do a lot of other law. I don't really want to make money like a leech out of other people. No, we are lawyers, right? This is what we do. We charge for our time, how long it takes. So now extensively, you've come to me, in some cases, people come to me when they're too late, right? Already the cancer has spread through the whole body, right? And you have done your submissions yourself, right? You have just copy pasted things and then you come after. At that time, I could have just charged you $3,000 for doing that. But then now you've got internal review. Now you failed the internal review. Now you're going to go to the tribunal. Now you want to go to federal court. Yes, of course, there's going to be 50,000, 60,000, 100,000. Yes. But because you haven't taken the step of going towards, and that is good for everyone. I mean, you might be aware of a lot of things that you otherwise were not if you speak to consultants and lawyers, right? So ultimately, look, these are some of the examples or how the things have been happening. I think there was a mention about death. I was privy to some conversation about someone died with I think it was one of your cases. So look, I mean, that is, NDIS commission is at a lower level, right? That is not where it stops. You'll have a coroner coming in and do investigation in a coroner court, right? I had a case like that, where someone was supposed to be in 24-hour care. If he's outside of the house, there has to be, not 24, but there has to be a support worker with that person, if he's also a tendency to suicide and everything. And that person just left the participant for half an hour. Guess what, when he came, not even half an hour, I think it was about 10 minutes, he just went to get a SIM card or something. Came back and the guy fled, right? He's gone somewhere and he can't find the participant now. In the evening, sometime they find, he gives a call, I'm here. Okay, they bring him back. When he came back, and this is a theory, when he came back, he brought some drugs with him, right? And he injected himself with those drugs. Well, fair enough. So at night passes, in the morning, the shift changes. The new support worker goes in and the bed is yellow, right? And the guy has died of overdose. Now the coroner comes in and says, hang on a second, but why did you leave him for 10 minutes or whatever? So that is what he's focusing on. He's not talking about whose fault it is, whether there's a BSP or not, and who's done what, the hospital has done this and that. They're talking about what is your duty. If you are operating in this space, anything the moment you point finger on someone else, they're going to say you're blame shifting. You got to take responsibility for it. So things can happen. You're dealing with people who are vulnerable, and there is a tendency for these people to harm themselves to a very serious extent. So it is not just like any other business. Now, I'll just quickly go over the 2023 NDIS Commission review, and then I'll wrap it up. Many of you would know there's a review. I think Fraz has already spoken about it, right? It was quite an extensive review. There was about 10,000. As a matter of fact, it was done by Professor Bruce Bonihalli, Lisa Paul. Who knows about anyone knows about Professor Bruce here? Yeah, well, he's a legend in his field. And the reason why this, again, coming back to the point that the irony there, that Bill Shorten came in, he wanted to have this review. He wanted to see how things can be fixed. Now, 10,000 submissions, imagine, this is I think one of the biggest anyway in the history of NDIS. 1,400 service providers were interviewed, 2,000 participants, and then they came up with a number of recommendations that I think Fraz has already discussed with you, in terms of the overhead, in terms of the even investigating powers, like I said, integrating between different services that Australian government provides. Complaints to the NDIS Commission, they rose by 43% in 2022 and 2023. High provider turnover rate. Who has had the experience that someone has poached your participant, right? Okay, well, this guy used to work for me. Now he's applied his own, right, registration. Sometimes even before he got his registration, your participant is gone, right? Now, so what have you done? What could you have done to fix it? Have you got the employment contracts, which have restraint of trade in them? No, but I just had a contractor agreement, independent contractor agreement. Why? Because I want to avoid, well, if that person was your employee, that person would owe a fiduciary obligation under common law, even if there's no contract. If you were paying him salary, PAYG, whatever, there's additional obligation that he must work in your best interest. This is common law, 1,200 years old, right? If you further cement that with your contract, that person would, at the minimum, you would send a strong message. You can sue him, right? So it's not about choice and control. That participant can go to anyone but that person, if that person was your employee, right? I'm talking about during the employment. But to cover it post-employment restraint, you will obviously need to have that contract. Again, how many of you are business partners? Have you ever thought of doing a shareholder agreement? You know how many disputes I get? Every second day, look, when you start, you have nothing. Okay, I trust them, that's okay. I'll give 50% to you, 50% my shares, all right? But then you start getting these participants, and now there's millions of dollars of revenue. And then what happens? Dispute. Husband and wife have disputes. Brothers have disputes, right? And there's nothing in writing. And that time when you go to court and you go to oppressive conduct list in a Supreme Court, the starting price is something like $40,000, $30,000, right? And that shareholder agreement would have costed you $3,000. Why wouldn't you do it? That would have avoided all the need for this. So guys, think compliance. And that can save you a lot of money one day down the track. It is a very high turnover industry. A lot of people come and go. And if you do the legal documentation, then you will not only meet the NDS requirements, but also protect your financial interests. So there's quite a bit of things, but I am already telling you this, so I'm not going through each and every slide. Yeah, so in terms of fraud prevention, I think we've discussed the task force. Annual financial audits, they're coming. So I don't know how many of you do the internal audits, but if you haven't done your internal audit, you're basically relying on external audit, right? There are a lot of times, even if you do something wrong, it's a business. Anything can happen, right? Mistakes happen. But if you're regularly doing your business audits and you're keeping record of it, NDIS Commission knocks on your door. You say, look, just last month, I've done this audit. I've done my due diligence. It was my worker. I could not control what happened, right? So if you can show that you have been proactively doing, looking after your business, NDIS Commission itself will understand. Fraz giving you an example that when there was a problem and then, a plan was given to them, also stating that Vertex 360 is not, they have now adapted a software, which is already going to, as a matter of fact, I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but if you get an audit, right, Vertex 360 software will cover a lot of questions the auditor asks you anyway. And you can just show them in the forms. Rather than keeping these manual forms yourself and then, scrabbling to see which folder did you put which form. All the things are there. It's a waterfall sort of approach, which will take you from, participant to work and whatnot. So obviously that is going to assist in that way as well. Do your internal audits. If you're not used to it, make it a habit. That's what I would say. I mean, like I said to you, it's your business. You got to protect it. In terms of banning, so there has been quite a few bannings. Look, there has been refusal, a 300% increase in the registration refusal in 2023. So these are when you make the application and people are waiting. A 300% increase, may mean anything. If it's 10, then you just go 30. If it's 100, you go 300, right? But we know that a number of the mere fact that it has increased so much means that NDIS Commission is no longer willing to just give the registrations, right? One of the very common reasons you go to consultants, and these consultants are dodgy consultants, not like us, right? What do? They got this off-the-shelf policies, right? Business plans. This is the same business plan they've given to you, and exactly same. The numbers are same, regardless of where you are, whether you are in Brunswick or you are in, I don't know, Echuca. It's the same. And then what happens? They've got now, everyone uses AI nowadays, right? I'm not sure if the NDIA does it, but NDIS Commission does it. But I'm sure that, it is a very, very a good possibility that they have got some very good systems where they can check, plagiarism. Okay. Well, where is your genuine input into it? What is your understanding about NDIS? You have just copied someone, and this, I mean, I don't need to hide it from you. It's called GCC or something. It's well published now, even on the website, NDIS Commission website. That because of that one person, I've had 7 people who are going to be revoked. Now, good for me that I've got about a 90% success rate. So I've been able to save many of those, except for someone who is really, really on the deathbed with a cancer spread throughout the body. But if you come to me at the right time, we can do some good submissions. We can give proper reasoning. We can give them a plan again, whatever documentation we need to give, and we can show them that you are a suitable person. Okay, so that being the stats, and then look, the banning orders generally can be from 6 months to 5 years, and in many cases permanently. So what does that mean for you? Is that just going to stop there? Not really. Not after these recommendations are implemented. Right now, yes, maybe, up to some extent. But as the system, the Fusion Task Force keeps on maturing, I can tell you, there's going to be a lot of dust. That time that is coming is not easy. As someone told me the other day, say, oh, look, Did you hear the minister is going? And because the minister is no longer going to be there, is not going to go to elections. Well, think about it. Is he more dangerous now or is he less dangerous? I think he's more dangerous because he doesn't care about whether he gets the votes or not, right? So ultimately, how it's going to happen, the best way is to protect your business. And I'm not saying intentionally you do wrong things. It is negligence most of the time. Record keeping, like I said to you, your procedures, your checks and balances are not there. Use the system, software system. Okay, so there are some other examples for you, for all of you who are interested. On the NDIS Commission's website, now there are two lists that they publish. One list is for organizations which are banned, and the other one where there are compliance sections. And what are the compliance section? It can be, again, some people have been, banned from putting invoices through until certain time. They have to be reviewed every time. They could be fined potentially. They could be, just the fact that you are put on a list where they're going to keep an eye on you. So everything you put is going to be checked. So look, I'll finish with this quote that compliance is not only about following the rules. It's about ensuring the integrity, sustainability, and success of your business in long term. I was reading it and I thought I would just read it for you, but the essence is there. That, when you look at compliance, it is an integrity. It's something that is the basic structure of who you are as well, right? If you want to be known as someone who's got integrity, you will ensure that compliance is there. You will take that extra step. Spend money into it. You go and spend money into whatever things that you've got. You just go and buy a new Merc, you buy a new BM and all that sort of thing. You have to pay $2,000 to compliance. You're like, should I pay? Should I not? So think about it. This is your livelihood, and keep it. It's a very good industry to be in. You are actually looking after a lot of people who are disabled, who are vulnerable. If you are good, and if you really look after your participant properly, right, that is the best service you can do to humanity. You are practically playing the role of a doctor without the 6-year study. You know what I'm saying? They look after their patients. So do the right thing. At the same time, it is an industry that will give you quite rewarding as well. That is my message for you. And then if you have got any questions, I'm basically based out of the same building as Vertex. So as you know, I'm not sure if a lot of you know, but we are brothers. So Hamad is my middle brother. Fraz is my youngest brother. It is by chance that we are like that, right? We didn't plan it. We didn't say, okay, one is going to be consultant, one is going to be accountant, one is going to be lawyer. No, it just happened. Okay. So all the best to you. And we'll be happy to be of service to you. Yes.
Quick question. How you were talking about someone else taking your support worker or support worker starting their own thing, which they're allowed to, but legally, is there any way that we can bind them in the contract, even the contractors?
Yes, you can. So that's what I said. Look, if you have a support worker, so it depends on the nature of relationship, right? If some people will have the support workers as independent contractor, they have their own ABNs, but they're independent contractors. Some people have them as subcontractor. These are two different things as well. Some people have them as employees, right? They're paying tax for them, PAYG, what people refer as. The strongest protection you will get is with PAYG, right? Because as I said to you, it's not just the contract. There's common law fiduciary obligation to your employer, right? But at the same time, if you have a contractor, you can restrict them. You have the proper contract, you have a restraint of trade in them. Just make sure, a lot of time people make a mistake. They have the restraint of trade during the employment or during the course of work, but after they finish, not. And you know that they're going to take your participant after they finish. Not most of the time.
Actually, we can't have after, because usually in a lot of companies they can. Like I'm employed by Bintam Council. So,
yes.
For 6 months or a year,
I don't think it's a good idea to discuss
asking
your case. Yeah. So look, what if you put in a contract? So it comes to what is legal and what's, if you put in a contract post contract restraint, for example.
Yeah.
Let's say I do some work for you, right? and you say that I've got these participants and I've come and done some gardening for you, okay? But you say to me that, look, I want you to sign a contract that 1 year after you finish working with me, until that time, you will not take this participant from me.
Legally.
Of course you can. Of course you can. Yeah. And that's the whole idea. Have the post, because this is a very high turnover industry, as you know. You know, people are fighting for each other's participants all the time. Yeah.
But just to clarify that you can't just write that by yourself. So you need a legal practitioner.
Yeah. And look, a lot of problem, and this is what I'm referring to as it costs you $700 to do a contract. Why would you write yourself? I mean, if you're gonna save $700 and down the track your participant revenue is some like $300,000, I don't know. I probably won't be able to look myself in the mirror, right? I mean, it's not smart. Get the lawyers. I mean, if you can fix your car yourself, right? You get a Mercedes, a brand new Mercedes, and say, now I'm going to do an oil change myself. I'm going to change the brakes myself. Okay, you can do it. You probably can save time. But if you put the brakes wrong, mark is gone. Yeah. So better to get the people who know what they're doing to get the work. It's not that expensive in the start, like I said, but things get bad, the cancer spreads, then it becomes expensive. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've switched the laptop. Hello. I'm the second person to sit down. Can we see it? I think it's. Oh, there we go. Is that? Can you guys see? Is that too zoomed out? Yeah, that's too zoomed out. I think we'd have to. That's way too small. That's better. You can't see anything, right? Too zoomed out. A little bit smaller.
But you can make it bigger when you're speaking on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sadly, I'm gonna have to do it this way. That's okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm going to be presenting a demonstration of Vertex 360. So we don't have much time, but I'll make it brief. I'll show you key features which I think are really important, and hopefully that will benefit you. So this software is also known as Patrick's favorite software. So he's a very loyal customer. So essentially, loyal customer. Yeah. So essentially, as you know, us had mentioned, and all of the speakers, there's a very huge emphasis on compliance. And I'm sure you would all agree, you know, like admin tasks and focusing on compliance is a headache, yes or no, right? Yeah. So that is the idea behind the software. One of the main ideas is that you spend less time on those tasks and you have more time to focus on what you really should be focusing on, and that's delivering care, right? So that is one of the main things that we're trying to achieve with Vertex 360. Now, there are various features and benefits in the software. It's growing, you know, it's a new software, but it is growing. And with the amount of features that are in the system, you know, if I take you through every single one, it will take a while. So I'll show you some features, which are very, very useful. And then towards the end, I'll have a QR code up. So then you can book a demo with me one-on-one where I can go through things in detail with you. So, yeah, I mean, that's a bit zoomed out. But this is the dashboard. And one of the things that we, section by section? What do you mean?
What's the dash?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the things, you know, which we kept in mind when making this was user friendliness, because at the end of the day, it's not just you as the admin who's using the software, it's also the support workers, right? So the software itself needs to be very user friendly, because that's the whole point of the software, to save you time. So the amount of time you save is what we're trying to achieve. This is the dashboard, for example, right? You have your audits coming up. Now, you can see just from the dashboard, the participants, the level at which they're compliant. So this one's 20%, 40%, 50%. You go to your workers, you can see, if I scroll to the right, you can see 60%, 80%, 85%. So anyone who's not 100% will appear here. That way you know who to follow up with, right? So that's already saving you a whole bunch of time. It's saving you time from going from this OneDrive document to this document. Rather than that, you can just look at the dashboard. So if I scroll down, you even have your expiring documents, right? So any expiring documents, the system will notify, and you'll have that here. Right, so that's your dashboard. We have like a section for participants where this is where all your client information is stored, right? So all your client information will be in one section here. And as opposed to, I don't know how you would do it usually, like manually OneDrive or something. You can do it on the software. So you can put all client information here. And if I click into one, you get a quick snapshot. You get goals, likes, dislikes, that way you can track the progression. If I scroll down, there's a support plan as well. So your support plan is accessible. And, say, for example, if I wanted to see the risk assessment for a participant, all I had to do is scroll down and, as you can see, it's already attached. So I can just see the risk assessment here. Let's go to one. There you go. So the ease of access is very high with the software. If I go to case notes even, this is where all the case notes are put for support team. And additionally, you have an onboarding bar, which you can see which mandate forms have been completed and which ones haven't. And with the forms, they are pre-filled. So on that topic of compliance, the templates are pre-done for you. So you don't have to worry about, drafting things which are compliant, things like that. We already have that in the software. So all that has to be done is that they just have to be filled out. And then it reflects in the system so you can track. So if I go to participant assessment, and by the way, with these forms, they're all dynamic, right? So they're customizable. You can add new forms, whatever. So currently, I think because of the screen, it's not sharing properly, but you'll have a list of all these forms and you can see what's completed and what hasn't been completed. Additionally, we have a complete document management system for participants. So you can put all the documents here. You can create folders. If I upload a document, whether that be, inactive plan documents, medical documents, things like that, you can all put that here. One thing I'll show you as well is we have risk assessments. So the risk assessment, which is something obviously very important, can be done here. So the worker will visit the client's house, they'll fill out the risk assessment form, and then they'll be able to get a risk rating. So they'll just choose a form that they've completed. And then as you can see, this is an example, right? So they just select the likelihood and the impact, and they'll get their risk rating. So then once there is a high risk rating, it will send a notification to you as admin. So if I click these three dots, you'll get the strategy date, the risk owner, who it's approved by, and the mitigation strategy. So that is a very, very important feature. Additionally, you have appointments which you can put here as well. If we go back, we have a similar kind of thing for your workers. So your worker information is all stored here. If I go to all workers, I'll show you. If I click one, the cool thing about this is you can see the key strengths, likes, and areas of improvement. So you can assess them and match them with participants. You can see the worker availability, the participant that they're assigned to. And you can also see an onboarding update bar of the documents that they've uploaded and the ones that they haven't. So what this allows you to do is basically, if I go to required documents, you can see the worker will go and they will say, oh, I need to upload my NDIS screening check, my working with children. They'll upload. And you can see what has been uploaded, what's not been uploaded, and even what's expired. Right. So it's a very, very easy way to track onboarding for your workers. Additionally, if I go to settings and I scroll down, you can actually test them. The key strengths, likes, and areas of improvement. And it's something which you can generate reports out of. And additionally, we are linked with QuickBooks, Myobe, and Xero. So when you're doing a payroll, you can export that information directly onto any of these softwares. And additionally, we also have forms. And once again, these forms are dynamic, customizable. That is where your worker information is stored, and previously that is where your participant information was stored. We have also a rostering module. So this is where you can do your rosters, right? So you'll have a rostering interface like this. And, since we're a bit short on time, I can just explain basically with the rostering, one of the features we have is workers can, when they end their shift and put their shift notes in, they can actually use AI to make the shift notes a bit more detailed. So that way, it gives you more detailed shift notes, and it saves you from having a very lazy, shift note. So some of the features we have here, worker tracking. So you can turn this on. This is something that I said was also talking about. You have worker tracking, so you can see exactly where the worker is on, and you have that in a timesheet. So if I scroll down, also one of the things that is important here is the ability to add recurring shifts. So at the bottom, there will be an option where you can select it, and it will across intervals. So if it's monthly, if it's yearly or weekly. Yeah. So that is your module. You've also got invoicing. Generate invoices. So instantly generating invoices or sent to plan managers can be done on the system. We also have a reporting module which was recently introduced. The reporting module allows you to create reports, from different areas. So if you want to generate a report, you can create it, and then you can see that report in a PDF, Excel, whatever you want. You can put your business policies here. So this is where you put your business policies, any complaints, feedback, and lastly, ask a question. Right. So I showed you, the main features, not so much in detail due to time constraints, but is the main objective of this software, where you have all your operations in one place, right? So you're not relying on multiple Excel sheets. You're not relying on multiple documents. You're relying on one software, which will do everything for you. So that will save a whole bunch of time. And, time is extremely, extremely valuable. And that's what we're trying to do with this software. So it's a software that was, essentially a lot on customer feedback. So we had, originally we started with providing a software for people to store their documents. And then later people said they wanted rostering. And then we introduced rostering. So we keep adding features as we're going. And the idea is to obviously create a very, very easy to use platform so we can save all that admin tasks and, all the headache that is associated with these admin tasks and staying compliant when you use the software does for you. So I apologize for the briefness of this demo. I would have loved to go into more detail, but that's okay. What you can do is, I actually have a slide here. If it opens, there you go. You can actually, let me just, give me a second. So if I create a slideshow, this is, so if you zoom in with your phone, you can scan that QR code, and that's what you can use to book a demo with me. And this is where I can go through the software in detail with you. So, yeah. Yeah, question?
Sure. Thanks so much for that. Looks like a very good platform, really.
Yeah.
Just want to know, when I, for example, I buy it, you'll provide training.
Yeah. Yes.
Whenever I get someone else, like a support worker or anyone employed, will you provide training for them, or we do?
So we provide trainings that includes your support workers as well. But unlimited trainings. So there's no restriction on the trainings. And additionally, when you sign up, there's an onboarding process. So you have a series of onboarding sessions, and that's where we train, use yourself. If you want to include your support workers, we train all of them there. So yeah.
System.
Yeah.
Because we got it Any participant. You know, I'm a subscriber, I'm trying to say. So the new upgrade, is it automatically upgrading my system or is it automatically upgraded?
Oh, you mean like the system being updated? Yeah, it'll be updated across everything. Yeah.
It's a good system and you presented a good illustration, but the echo on your mic,
Oh, is it bad?
was so bad. I don't know if it
Really?
actually I've got headache.
Why did no one? What? What? Why did no one tell me?
Everyone was being respectful.
Huh? Oh, no one told me. Yeah,
It's just you, but
just me. It wasn't anyone else.
I'm kidding.
Oh man, man,
I was looking around and somebody else.
man, you guys are cruel.
You have made this memorable for me.
Yeah.
I'm
See, now it's memorable. So when you think of Vertex 360, you'll think about echoes, compliance.
mentally.
So if someone is using the, let us say, subscribe to a software.
Yeah.
They get money. Is it included in, because I know that something
Yeah.
this software already have some policies also, tabs I can see. So it's incorporated, it's the same thing or
Yeah.
someone use the subscriptions for that?
Yeah. So this.
Yeah. So the policy section just includes upload your own policies.
Yeah.
It doesn't include your policies.
Yeah.
Because policies has to be customized to your business.
But on that, we actually have. Hang on, it's not echoing, is it? Okay. Yeah. Thank God, someone told me. Yeah. So on that, we actually have a different plan as well. It's a platinum plan, and that with that plan you get access to other companies, certain benefits like one internal audit, tax advice, legal advice, and so on. So that is another subscription as well.
So with the legal advice, it will be including the lawyer access. When I ask any question ad hoc, I can just.
Yeah, and the platinum. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Also, no charge. It'll be included in the subscription cost.
So it's not much different from I think the one is called Total Suite, the normal one.
Yeah, that's the normal one.
Then there's a platinum plan where you have pre-legal advice, you have internal audit as well, once a year. What else? You have websites, your standard website. Obviously, you can modify this. You have employment contract free, the standard one. See, this is how much I'm trying to help everyone. Get those contracts, get those documents.
Thank you, Hassan. You send me your ways because I'm exact number.
What's the pricing?
Pricing? Good question.
Oh, by the way, it's a standard contract. The other day, someone sent an email saying, I want to do this contract with, over 10 years, this is going to happen. Next 5 years, this is going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, that's going to take me at least 3 hours just to get you instructions. Okay? So, yeah, so standard contracts, PAYG contracts.
Okay, sorry guys, it kind of sucks because this is really zoomed out for some reason. But yeah, good point. Yeah, it would be so the pricing is dependent on your like a participant range. So it's not like you charge for each participant or each worker. It's just a participant range, and the amount of workers you can add is unlimited. So we have different ranges, 1 to 5, 6 to 20. So let's say we go 1 to 5. That is $22 per month, and that is the cost you pay, as in like you don't pay an implementation fee. So that is what you're paying for unlimited trainings as well, and you get all those features in the software.
That's less than one cup of, how do they say? How do they sell it? They say that's less than a cup of coffee. That's less than, I don't know, what do you get for $1?
A week. Month.
Yeah, no.
If you could, if you had the ability, to, choose how much.
If you have 200 participants, no.
Yeah. If you had the ability to kind of choose how much time you wanted to save in a year, and write a check for the value of that, You wouldn't be able to because the number would be so high. But you know, $22 per month is nothing for 1 to 5. So the amount of time you're saving, the value is crazy. And you know, say you go up to 6 to 20, that's $90 per month. And then platinum is $180. But keep in mind with platinum, you get benefits which, you know, $1,200 of worth, $500, $800. So you're getting a lot more value out of this. 21 to 50, 135 per month.
So let's say if you have 10 participants.
Yeah.
You have 20 weeks rotation.
So it's just based on participants, not your workers. So you can add unlimited workers. And also one thing is that you get a dedicated, essentially like a CSM, a key accounts manager who will help you out with any issues that you may have. You can just text them. So, or call them. Yeah. So that's Vertex 360. Any other questions? Because I want to make time for the Q&A session for everyone.
Yeah,
no, I think.
Well,
Okay.
you know our details. Most of you know where we live. As in during business hours. Yeah, please, any questions? Like I said, we are here to assist you and help you in this journey. It's not a purely commercial venture. It's more about, okay, we want to develop relationships, which are long-term relationships. Tammy, I don't know, how long have we known each other?
15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even remember. So a lot of people, like I said to you, things, yes, in terms of what the packages offer and how we have our products that we give you, services that we give you, but we want to look at you as our friends rather than our clients. So in terms of support as well with the software, you know that you can, I know there's other software vendors out there. We've got call center and everything, and we'll bring you this and that. With us, you can just give us a call saying if you can't resolve something. So yeah.
So let's say if someone have the platinum and they need a lawyer asset to take up the case, whether it's big or small. Would it be like separate charge that one?
Yeah, so it's free legal advice.
Yeah.
So basically, normally, to give you an idea, my rate is about $500 an hour. So I charge 500, which you don't have to pay. So I discuss your case with you and this and that. But after that, let's say you want to go to federal court, and of course there's a cost. And I can give you a but what we have got is we already have a system where we can apply a discount, for example, negotiate the rates and everything else. Ultimately, like I said, legal work is quite simple. If it takes me 10 hours to do something somewhere, $500. If my other solicitor he does something, I'm the principal, but if let's say Amir is also a solicitor with me, it's $200 an hour, right? So it just depends on what work it is, what's the complexity, who do you need, and if you just need a contract, for example, you don't need me to do it, right? Amir can do it, and there can be reduced costs. Same quality, because I'm the one who's done it in the first place. So if we work like that to reduce costs where possible. But consultations are good.
Any other questions before we leave? Yeah.
Question, I just want to acknowledge the amount of time, effort, interest that you have in people. And like Asad said, I've known you for so long, just to say thank you so much, because we can't pay your time, put together. So truly, we know your heart. Your heart is for us to prosper and to encourage people to do good. And that's what we all should do. So thank you so very much. Personally,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. We hope you all enjoyed the conference. Have a good night.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what? I love books. Yes, all my respect. I like to when I do. I'm still doing it. So yeah, you can do it, Joanne.